everyone, my name is Becky and today I will be talking to you about Britain's most celebrated type founder, William Caslon, and why I, amongst many others, believe that he should be considered one of the great figures of design history. There are 4 sections to my presentation. I will start by introducing Caslon himself, including his life, works, family and background. Then I will move on to discussing the Caslon typefaces, which are not just the ones that he produced, but others that have been reissued and redesigned in his name. I will then discuss his fantastic foundry that he established in 1725, and I will conclude by giving you a brief overview and summarising why I believe that William Caslon should be considered one of the greatest figures of design history. Before we begin, I would like to draw your attention to this quote I discovered when researching William Caslon. Coming directly to the subject of the present work, it is astonishing that so little truth has been recorded of the origins and early life of William Caslon, who has an undeniable eminence in a branch of the art of printing, the art preservative of all arts, and who holds the well-deserved title of the foremost type founder. This quote was written by Johnson Ball in his William Caslon biography called Master of Letters. I think that this quote successfully encapsulates Caslon's effect on the typographic world and is a great way to begin our presentation. So who is William Caslon? To make it easier to follow along, I have divided this section into 4 subsections, as you can see here: Caslon himself, a key dates timeline, his jobs and his family. William Caslon was Britain's first and most celebrated type founder. Through his type foundry and designs, Caslon transformed English type design and established the first English national typographic style. William Caslon was born in Cradley, Worcestershire in 1693. The exact date of Caslon's birth is unknown, and there has been much debate over whether his birth was actually the year before. However, Caslon was baptised on the 23rd of April 1693, which is why the majority of Caslon fanatics believe he was born earlier that year. Caslon is known for his work in type design, which he started roughly in 1721 and carried all the way through until his death. William Caslon died, aged 73, on the 23rd of January 1766 at his country house in Bethnal Green. Obviously, William Caslon's life was filled to the brim with recognisable events, so much so that Johnson Ball dedicated 11 pages of his book just to a timeline. However, I pulled out the main events in here just to show you. They are also on your handout in the chronology. So we begin with William being born in 1693. The next major life event was when Caslon became an engraver in 1716. At only 23, Caslon had worked his way through to owning his own engraving business in Vine Street, London. Soon after, in 1717, Caslon married his first wife, Sarah Pierman, at St. Peter's Church. In 1721, Caslon was commissioned by the Society of Promoting Christian Knowledge, also known as SPCK, to produce an Arabic font at the English type size of 14 points. This was Caslon's first famous typographic release. Following his fame for producing the Arabic font, which was used in the Arabic New Testament in 1727, Caslon opened up his first letter foundry in 1725. In 1728, Caslon's wife Sarah Pierman died, however he quickly remarried to Elizabeth Long in 1729. As we know, Caslon died in 1766, aged 73. I decided to divide the next section up into a timeline style as well, as I thought it may be easier to follow. Because of their nature and the impact they had on Caslon's life, some of the events have been repeated, however I will just brush past them again. 1706 saw the start of Caslon's career. By the age of just 13, he was an apprentice to Edward Cookes, a citizen and loriner of London. A loriner is much like a blacksmith, however he tends to concentrate on making small iron objects, especially spurs, stirrups and mountings for horse bridles. Caslon apprenticed to Cookes for 7 years, completing in May of 1713. As we already know, Caslon set up his own engraving business in 1716. However, in 1717, Caslon was contracted to engrave gun locks for the Ordnance Office at the Tower of London. This is how many began to hear of his work. The next 3 sections we already know. The SPCK commissioned Caslon to design an Arabic font in 1721. He set up his first letter foundry in 1725, and the Arabic New Testament was printed in Caslon's typeface in 1727. From 1728 to 1734, Caslon produced multiple typefaces, and many of them were used in print. However, his most famous work was done in 1734, where he produced a specimen sheet to publicise his foundry. From 1734 all the way up to his death in 1766, Caslon continued to work at the foundry and became one of the most famous type founders of all time. This slide is a brief family tree that I created of William Caslon. I will not go into discussion about this due to timings, but please feel free to pause the video and have a deeper look at Caslon's family. Section 2. Typefaces. This section is divided into 3 subsections of typefaces. We begin with specimen sheets. William Caslon produced 2 famous specimen sheets in his lifetime, one in 1734 and one in 1742 alongside his son William Caslon II. The first specimen sheet is the most famous and includes 38 fonts, all with 3 exceptions of which were designed by Caslon himself. The specimen was created in 1734 to advertise the Caslon foundry, which he had just moved to Chiswell Street that same year. This specific specimen put Caslon above anyone else in his profession at the time, initiating his fame. The second specimen was designed in the format of a book by William Caslon and his son William Caslon II. The pair produced 4 known specimen books together, however the 1742 version signified the start of their partnership. The next 2 sections are divided into metal type and digital type. There are hundreds of typefaces designed and reissued and dedicated to William Caslon. However, I will briefly discuss the 6 that are the most well known. The first metal typeface I will be discussing is the Caslon Oldface design. Caslon Oldface were designed by William Caslon himself, however were reissued after his death by H.W. Caslon and Sons. Some of the Caslon's typefaces were augmented by adding new features such as swash capitals, which can be seen in the image on the left. The Caslon Oldface was so popular that even hot metal typesetting companies such as Monotype and Linotype released the designs themselves. The second metal typeface I will be discussing is Caslon 471 and 540. Caslon 471 was the American type founders, the ATF, first version of Caslon. It became incredibly popular in the 19th century and many newspapers, books and reports were printed in the Caslon 471 design. Caslon 540 was released soon after and was almost identical to 471. However, it had shorter descenders so that it could be used in work that needed closer line spacing, which you can see here. The final metal typefaces are 223 and 224. Caslon 223 and 224 were photosetting typefaces designed by Ed Benguiat and published by the International Typeface Corporation (ITC). They are both similar in design, however, as you can see here, 223 is much more dramatic in its weight. Both of these typefaces were primarily used for advertising due to their aggressive, bold structures. To finish up our section on typefaces, I will be discussing the redesigned digital releases. The first digital release I will talk about is Big Caslon. Big Caslon was designed by Matthew Carter in 1994 and was inspired by the funky 3 larger sizes that the Caslon Type Foundry had to offer. Big Caslon typefaces can be distinguished by their noticeable straight contrast, which was complementary but contrasting from the original Caslon typefaces. Because of this, Big Caslon is often used in advertising and poster design. It is not supposed to be used at any size lower than 18 points. William Caslon Text was designed by William Berkson in 2010. Berkson wanted to encapsulate Caslon's spirit into a new modern digital design. William Caslon Text was released by the Font Bureau and is notable for its use in Boston Magazine and by Foreign Affairs. It is also often used as the body text for historic and scientific works. Finally, we come to the extremely well-known Adobe Caslon, designed by Carroll Twombly in 1990. The typeface is based on Caslon's 1734 specimen sheet, however has had many features added such as small caps, swash letters, ligatures, ornaments and much more. A fun fact about Adobe Caslon is that it is widely known for its use as the body text of the New Yorker and was one of only 2 official typefaces of the University of Virginia. The final section I will be discussing before I conclude is the famous Caslon letter foundry. The Caslon type foundry was established by William Caslon in 1725. At first based at Helmet Row, Old Street, the foundry moved to Ironmonger Row in 1727 and then again to Chiswell Street in 1734, where it remained without any significant changes until 1937. The Caslon letter foundry was the leading type foundry of the 18th and 19th century and became famous after William Caslon released his 1734 specimen sheet advertising his works and designs. Word of Caslon's work travelled so far that when the Americans decided to make the Declaration of Independence, they imported type from the famous Caslon foundry in Chiswell Street just to do so. A fun fact about Caslon's type foundry is that he had monthly concerts there, using an organ and serving beer that he brewed himself. To conclude, William Caslon was the first celebrated English type designer who revolutionised the typographic world. Alongside his incredible foundry, his production and influence on typographic design has influenced the way typographers work for centuries and still continues to do so today. For this reason, amongst many others, I believe that William Caslon should be considered one of, if not, the greatest figures of design history. Thank you for listening.